You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a fun show after a wild game. It's a Locked On Buckeye Squad show after Ohio State's 28-14. Gave him too many points. 28-14 win over Texas in the Cotton Bowl, the national semifinal. Your Ohio State Buckeyes are going to the national championship for the first time since 2020. It's wild to think about this happening in this game. And joining me for the entirety of tonight's show, it's Ohio State analyst Jeff Hunt, and then the host of Locked On College Football, Spencer McLaughlin. And Jeff and Spencer, there was a group chat going. I got a text from Spencer at some point. I shared two different GIFs during that period. The first drive, I was like, oh, okay, Ohio State and Chip Kelly, they got something going with the run. The entire game kept going, and I started to get a little bit nervous and more nervous and more nervous. Ohio State kept playing. Buckeyes had a 7-point lead at one point. I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting nervous. Next thing you know, we get a goal line stand from Ohio State, and what do you know? Jack Sawyer, Mr. Buckeye, Captain Jack, whatever you want to call him, he made a play when you needed somebody to make a play. He was the guy there. And Jeff, on today's show, I made a comment this morning off on Buckeyes that Ohio State needed to do whatever it takes to beat Texas in the Cotton Bowl. And I know Ohio State, to me, was a team that I thought was going to win by a bigger margin. But Texas came in with a good game plan. Texas has a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. But at the end of the day, Ohio State's defense, Ohio State's offense, Will Howard on that 4th and 3, they made plays, and they did whatever it takes to win. I'll turn it over to you, Jeff. I know we're both a little crazy right now, but, man, it's nice to see a Buckeyes do whatever it takes to win a big game.
I don't know what you're so crazy about, guys. My heart rate is perfectly normal. It's just a fun football game. I just sat back and was like, ooh, this is cool.
I'm literally butchering the final score at the end of the game, but at the beginning of the show, I'm just thinking, it's right here on my screen. It's a wild game, Jeff. So but literally, they did whatever they took, man.
No, it was nuts. And they did. And what it took, these teams, honestly, the takeaway from this game was that these teams were identical. I thought Texas and Ohio State were the same team out there. And the entire game, I was like, this is the Quinn Ewers game. This is the Quinn Ewers game. This is the Quinn Ewers game. And unfortunately, it ended as the Quinn Ewers game because of the flaw, on the goal line. And, it was just – I don't even know how to describe it. I don't think Ohio State had a good game plan. But here's what Texas did. Texas was like, we're going to play straight up. We're going to take away JJ. It's not that, we're going to bracket it. And we're going to let our athletes be athletes. And so this game became 5 stars and 4 stars versus 5 stars and 4 stars. There wasn't a lot of stunts. There wasn't a lot of misdirection. There wasn't a lot of trick plays. And the difference in the game up until the Jack Sawyer play was Quinn Ewers was I won't say he's a better quarterback, was more ready for the big game than Will Howard. Will Howard had a terrible game. It doesn't matter now. I can say it out loud, but he really did have a terrible game. I don't know if you guys watched it, how you guys watched it. I watched it in Skycast. Texas, because of their really, really deep and good defensive line, was able to keep 2 safeties back. And they were able to drop guys into the zone. And Howard really struggles with the dropping it in pass. Where a guy like if we're going to compare him to Ohio State quarterback CJ Stroud could drop it in there. Howard's not that great at it. He's limited. He's hit his ceiling this year. That's not a knock against Howard. But in Texas was we drop a guy in the mid zone. We leave our 2 safeties out there, make him work for it. And it worked. They got the interception that they needed when they got it. Howard seemed confused the entire game. He seemed a little hurt. There was this weird, whatever happened to his left hand. I don't think we're still sure about that. And Ewers, I was like, the entire game, I was like, as long as Ewers stays within a touchdown, this is a wrap. And it's still, even when they were on the goal line, this is a wrap. And he makes the one, I'll just say it, he made the one mistake that definitely absolutely cost him the game. I thought this was a 50-50 game, even more than last night. But what boiled down to was the Buckeyes were under the gun. They weren't coached great. And the players themselves, a lot of seniors, a lot of older guys just kind of was like, okay, let's just make all the little plays that we haven't made under Ryan Day's regime over the last 5 years. Let's make the little plays, the tiny little plays, and win this game. And they did it.
Speaking of recent trends that Ohio State got away from, where were all these penalties coming from? This has been a mistake-free team for the last couple weeks. All of a sudden, hold, false start, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Hold, false start, hold, like, I don't know what happened, but I also...
We don't either, Spencer.
I've never been in this environment, so I can't speak firsthand to the emotions of it all. I will never understand how guys are willing to blatantly commit flagrantly obvious unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. Like, Travion, what are you doing? How do you think you're going to hit a... Travion could have been ejected from this game.
Yes, he can. Yes.
He absolutely could have. I appreciate that the officials didn't go to that length because I don't want that sort of call to have such an impact. But you just get up after a play, no one's moving around, and you hit a guy in the face mask. Man, if you've got that sort of energy, if you've got that frustration,
that game's over at that point. I think everybody thought that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and he says, "Oh man, I'm still mad about it."
What's just so frustrating about it, I think, if you're a Buckeye fan watching those things in the game of football, is if you are that angry, don't take it out after the play. Save it for the next time you have the football in your hands. Run through a guy's face and stiff arm him into the ground. But it went both ways. Gunnar Helm just bodies Caleb Downs.
Yes.
I've never seen somebody do that before.
No.
I didn't even know that could have happened. He throws him and then points in his face like, dude. Now, I would like to see the official give a warning in that spot, but he's completely justified in throwing a flag.
Absolutely.
Completely justified.
And after the Henderson play, he had to call that.
Yeah. 100%.
And I totally agree that I like that play as a college football fan, but I'm like, now you painted yourself in a corner.
Right.
What I still didn't understand that, because that should have been like, we all watch a lot of football. That should have been after, a dead ball foul, right? Why was that not 1st and 25? Does anybody know?
So what happens is, if it occurs after the play, but before 1st and 10, the penalty isn't actually occurring on 1st and 10. So this discrepancy came up in an NFL game recently, and the crew almost got it wrong. And Mike Pereira came in as the analyst. I think it was Mike or Blandino or someone came in and said, yeah, this should be 1st and 10. Not 1st and goal from the 30 or from the, I think it was going to be 1st and goal from like the 21-yard line or something in the Bucks game. And he was like, no, it's not, because the play didn't have the penalty didn't happen on 1st and 10 because that ball hasn't been set. So that play hasn't actually happened yet.
So you know what? I actually like that. I
do too.
I knew somebody would know. I didn't think they got it wrong, but I was like, why is it not 1st and
No, I agree. But I mean, on the game, have you guys seen that Pawn Stars meme where the guy's behind the counter and he's like, best I can do is, I had that image of Ohio State fans going to Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. Hey, we would like for you to keep throwing the ball deep to Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka. Best we can do is a couple of screen passes.
Just a couple. Just a couple.
It's because here's the thing. I want to be totally honest. It's so hard for me to critique this only because of the outcome. If you asked me 1 hour
That's
ago,
what I'm for.
I was exact. Thank you, Spencer. I know. No, exactly. An hour ago, I was like, I'm ready to string. And again, this is the whole thing. Texas is going to bracket you. What you need to go 5 wide. You need to go get 4 wide receivers in the group, like the middle of the field. Okay, here everybody knows cover 2. Guess what's open? The seams. And we did not. They didn't work the seams. And when Howard tried to, he seemed a little confused. And that was the whole thing. If they're going to take Jeremiah out of the game, I have no problem with that. That's literally why you're Ohio State or Texas, because you have so many players. Like Carnell Tate's good enough. I mean, Carnell Tate dropped the big one. Who knows what it's.
But then he came back and he made a bunch of plays later.
He did.
No, they had a bunch of ballers out there. Like I literally got no critique of the Ohio State players' effort. Like say Will Howard played a bad game. It's not that he wasn't trying. I think he was legit confused. We've seen this. It reminded me a lot of like, and this is insane, but the one example I always have of like sometimes a simple defense, but with good athletes can mess you up. Patrick Mahomes versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They literally ran umbrella the whole game. And Mahomes is like,
just
I got
two-man,
nothing
baby.
because the linebackers can tackle. And they kind of both teams did that. I mean, Texas has got some ballers out there. They got a lot of team speed. So, like, we need to look at the other side and be like, Ohio State didn't let those guys get free either outside of a couple drives. Like, I don't know what to make of this game. I really don't. I should let Spencer just discuss it as more of a neutral observer.
Well, I mean,
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, what I think this is demonstrative of is no matter how good a team is or how well a team is playing, the path to a championship is never easy. There's always at least one game somewhere in which you go, boy, they could have lost that game. The prime example I always go to is there are a lot, but in the NBA, when the Raptors won it, remember how they got to that point?
Yes.
Game 7, home floor, they could have lost to the Sixers, but Kawhi Leonard shot. Oh, it's one of my favorite Kevin Harlan calls ever. But that's how close they were. And Ohio State, frankly, was at the same time that close, but not that close to losing the game because inside the 5, this is the best college defense I have ever seen. Now, admittedly, I am younger than most. I did not see the 2001 Miami team with Ed Reed and all of those guys. But inside the 5-yard line, Jim Knowles is just saving his best because, holy smokes, nothing works. The fact that they were flagged for 2 pass interference calls and still wound up scoring a touchdown is patently insane. That's insane. Give me another defense that on 3rd and goal can commit a pass interference, then on the ensuing 1st and goal commit another one and not only give up 0 points, but score 7. I've never seen that before.
No, Spencer, I'm glad you brought that up because the entire time of the game, like, again, I live right here in literally the heart of Buckeye country, and we all were discussing this was a Jim Tressel game. This looked exactly like what the 01, the 02, the 03 season. Because everybody forgets 03 that they were undefeated until Michigan beat them. They should have went back to the national championship. Either way, but I'm saying like this is exactly what it looked like. You're like, there's no way they can win this. There's no way they can hold up. There's no way Mike Doss can make another play. And Caleb Downs went straight Mike Doss tonight. Shout out to the number 2 and all. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And I think just like with the Penn State Notre Dame game, if you're Texas and the Texas fans, I think you're a little nauseous. I think you're like, we were fine. We had it. Ohio State, it's not like they were beating up Ewers. I mean, they were getting some pressure, but I think the conversation is going to be once everything settles down and the bubbles die down. It was the Ewers game, and I think there's going to be a lot of critique of how he handled it and how he played it. And when we look back, him and Sark, did they do things right? It's kind of hard to process right now as a Buckeyes fan because it's still a little surreal, and we have another week, to look forward to play. And I'll just put it out there, like one year for Christmas, I bought my son a Marcus Freeman jersey. Just everybody knows
I forgot about that.
How we feel about Marcus Freeman in this area, how we felt then. Like, so like this game is, there's some blood ties in this game.
There's a lot of stuff that went on in this game, positive and even negative for Ohio State. We'll dive into a couple of those things after the break. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, no, that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger. but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are getting handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. As the Locked On Buckeyes Squad show rolls on after Ohio State's 28-14 win over Texas in the Cotton Bowl, advancing to the national championship, one thing that I think was a massive positive for Ohio State, Jeff, it showed up against Michigan. Jeff, it showed up against Nebraska. Jeff, it showed up in big ways all season long. The Buckeyes defense once again made play after play after play. We're going to highlight Jack Sawyer's 83-yard scoop and score, stripping a strip sack on his former roommate and Quinn Ewers. Of course, Caleb Downs at the end with that interception. But it definitely seemed like, even though there was some issue with the Buckeyes defense, the Buckeyes defense was the reason Ohio State was still in the game and had a chance to win at the end of the day.
Oh, it's 1,000%. Like, the Buckeyes defense played great. This is one of those, like, we're all three going to sit here as college football fans. This is the key here. We don't just watch one team. We watch a lot of teams. This defense played great. College football, like, it's like we watched a game last night that went to 27-24, and it was a low-scoring game. So for any college football defense to hold a goal line stand, hold a team to 14 is almost impossible in college football, especially when you're talking the playoffs, when you got all these extra timeouts. The game takes 4 hours. There's plenty of time to think. All these things for, like, it's actually like probably better than we think. And honestly, Texas defense played really good. They didn't give up the last 7 points. I think the what I call the game-winning drive, before when Ohio State took the lead at 21-14, that was Texas' worst drive of the game, where they kind of got beat up and they finally used Howard's legs a little bit. I thought that was a great move and everything, but like both these teams were good, and Ohio State's defense for, I don't know, a month or 2 months now, or actually the whole year, they're one of the highest rated, but like they've been just straight out balling, like everything that we were promised, everything that we were promised when Knowles got there, everything we were promised when JTT and Sawyer got there, as disappointed as we were. We're sitting here talking about one of the great defensive playoff games that we've ever seen. I know it sounds like I'm saying crazy. Go back and look at the stats. Like, it's insane. Like, and it was really impressive. Everybody does their job. I think Igbenogson, I really think he's underrated for what he does for that team. And I think Burke, as much heat as he took after the first Oregon game, I really think those guys, like, they really play assignment football. Mm-hmm. And again, they did the same thing that the Texas did. They were able to keep their safeties as safeties. They didn't have to bring a lot of help. Hewers used his legs a little bit, but they contained him pretty well. Cody Simon has played the greatest 4 games in Ohio State that we ever expected out of him. Like, all these things have just come together at the right time. And we talked about it last time. Like, they built a team to win in the playoffs. But I just can't say enough about them. I know you guys are like, yeah, shut up, Jeff. You can't say enough about them. But I'm so curious to hear. This is why I want to hear Spencer's viewpoint as he watched the game. Like, we'll say like a quarter in, how did you feel it was going to go? I'm so curious.
Yeah, so a number of thoughts there. I just have to throw out the most obscure tidbit that popped into my head. As long as Denzel Burke is not going against someone who has any affiliation to the state of Oregon, he's a really good player, because he missed a tackle today. And do you know who it was on? Silas Bolden, the Oregon State transfer. So something about that state has got him mystified completely and utterly, and I don't know what it is.
But when here for the random facts, guys.
That is the most random I could have possibly come up with, but it clicked in my head. I wasn't going to not share that. So going back to your question, though, Jeff, I kept waiting and expecting Ohio State to pull away. After the first drive, I thought, here we go. This is about what I thought. Now, the final score ends up being very close to what both Jay and I predicted. You had 31. I had 30. So I win the Price is Right lower battle on Ohio State's score, but you win it on getting it right on the number for Texas's score. So I think we pushed there, but I kept expecting Ohio State to open it up, and then they kept getting in their own way. And I thought one of the most underrated moments of Ohio State just making a self-inflicted wound was Will Howard pulled the ball instead of giving it to Quinshon Judkins.
My God.
I have no earthly idea. There was nothing, and I mean nothing, other than a predetermined read in his head that he wanted to pull it that led him to make that decision, because it's clearly a read play. I mean, it's blocked perfectly. You've got Judkins one-on-one with a safety. That's 15 yards minimum. Instead, it's -3, and I believe that possession resulted in 0 points. But if Judkins can make one guy miss, that's a house call. That is an absolute house call. So I kept waiting for that. And then the Travion Henderson screen came, and I thought, okay, here goes Ohio State. But Texas, to their credit, their secondary played well enough to take away the deep shots. And yeah, a couple kind of worked out. You got the pass interference late in the game on Ibuka when they went with, the pulling guard max protection. And when that came about in, I think it was the third, early fourth quarter, I thought, where was that in the first?
Yeah.
I know the first play that scored a touchdown against Oregon was simple, and Oregon safeties just had a horrible day and couldn't tackle for the life of them compared to what Texas's safeties were able to do. But I still just didn't it was not exactly a Michigan rerun, but it was shades of what are you gonna push it there? Are you gonna look? And the double team of Jeremiah Smith then led to Will Howard forcing the ball to him and the interception. And again, that's the epitome of what I'm talking about here. There were opportunities for Ohio State to run away with this game, and it came on offense, but the offense wasn't as sharp as it has been. But the defense was as advertised. Again, they come up with the big play. So I kept waiting for, where's the 15-point Ohio State lead? And I believe until the end of the game, they didn't lead by double digits.
Yeah, no, they sure didn't. And it was and another thing about that is it also comes down to, we talk about it. We all talk about it all the time. All the fun stories and everything. It came down to Travion Henderson I think he was a 4-star, maybe a 5-star. And he made one play. Good. He made one play that changed the game. He made a miraculous touchdown out of nowhere that kept that game, where it was. And that was a different, we analyze all this and we look at the defenses, and, Spencer said something there. The Texas defensive backs were awesome. Yes. I really thought they were awesome, because Ohio State's wide receivers are really good. I know I'm breaking news here, but I mean, they're not just good at athletes. They're good route runners. They're good at getting open. They're good at getting each other open. And they couldn't do it. The safeties, I thought the safeties for Texas played great. But it all came down to one play. Travion's I'm sorry I hit that guy in the face mask, Jeff. I'm going to go score this touchdown. I hope you forgive me. We're all square now, right? And then, it's just, it really came down to just player versus player versus player. And whoever was going to make the last mistake, whether it be Will Howard or Quinn Ewers or, Henderson or whoever, was going to lose that game. And it really stinks, because I don't think I can pick one person off of the Texas team and say well, it's your fault. You know what I mean? It was just one of those, this is one of those games to where somebody had to lose that game, and it stinks. It really does. I was not rooting against Texas. I was rooting for Ohio State. And it just I don't know, impressive showing by both squads. I thought the coaching staffs did really good. I don't think they were – I think Sark probably won the coaching battle. I mean, he had his team at the goal line.
Texas fans are not going to agree with you on that one, Jeff.
They're not. He made some mistakes. But I always look at – and I know you guys do too. I look at coaching. What was your game plan? I thought Sark's game plan was perfect. He knew how to beat –
particularly on the defensive side.
Yeah, 100%. And believe me, Marcus Freeman sat and watched this whole game check, because this is how you beat Ohio State. Don't change it. Notre Dame is going to do this exact same thing.
But can they do it, though? Like, can Notre Dame try to do what Texas did?
But they're going to.
Which side of the ball? Which side of the ball are you talking about?
Defense.
Either one.
This is how to stop Ohio State. You have to be able to pressure with 4 to 5 max.
I didn't even think they got a ton of pressure.
No, they really didn't.
I thought they had the right defensive play calls and the secondary executed at a high level. That's what I saw more than anything.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But if you all of a sudden, like, your secondary is getting beat, then you start scrambling, like, okay, we got to send a couple guys, or you start doing some stunts. Well, that's when Ohio State beats you with athletes, because that's when the Jeremiah Smiths and the Igbukas take over. But if you can leave your defensive backs back there and let them just be defensive backs in the zone, Howard was clearly bothered by it. And so Notre Dame is going to be like, all right, we'll try that. And if they can get, but no, I mean, I know we don't want to get, forecasting too much, but Notre Dame's defensive lines, if they can't collapse the pocket, like, it's probably a wrap. I'm not bragging or anything, but it probably is. But I'm not saying they won't. But Texas defensive line, like, they just got dudes they can run in there. They got a conveyor belt of defensive linemen. And Howard was, let's put it this way. Howard's a big fan of Jack Sawyer. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Jay, I have a question for you, and Jeff, you as well. I want you guys both to make guesses. Have you looked at the line and the
I
the
stopped
totals?
Myself before doing it.
Okay,
it's got to be something.
I did it before the game.
Okay, Jay, hold on. We'll see. We'll see who can. We'll see who can get closer here. Jay, as the host, you get to go first. What do you think the line is?
Ohio State minus.
This is according to our friends at FanDuel, of course.
Okay,
8.5.
Oh, of course.
8.5 for Jay. Okay, Jeff.
You stole my line, Jay, so I'm going to come up with another one. You know what? I'll go 9.5.
Jeff is the winner. Ohio State minus 9.5.
So it didn't move. I thought it moved slightly down a point after.
I think 8.5 is perfect.
But 9.5. I can
okay,
get down with
here's
that.
the really
That's
fun
insane,
one, though.
by the way.
9.5 point spread. What do you think the total is?
Ooh, hold on here. Let's say this. So if it's 9.5,
This time Jeff can go first.
It's going to be 30 to 20. I'll just say 49.5.
Jay?
44.5.
Jay's a little closer. 46.5.
Ooh, so they're basically saying a rout. That's a rout.
They're saying a slugfest.
Yeah, but they're also
not
they're
like
saying
you're going to win.
by 10.
They think Ohio State's going to win by, around 10 points, or is capable of winning by more than that. But the total 46.5. That's both teams well under 30. Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to not pick Ohio State. Like, I don't know if we might talk about Notre Dame more later, and we should save it for that. I was just curious and popped in, and that kind of stood out to me as like, wow, that's a lot of faith. But I do think Ohio State deserves it, Jay, with the way the defense is playing. Like, it's just, you look at all three levels, and you and I talked before the season about this Buckeyes team and said, yeah, I mean, corners, good, safeties, great, D-line, elite, linebackers, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to matter right now.
The difference is, I'm sorry, Jay, but like real quick, the difference has been, Spencer just touched on it. The difference has been Cody Simon. Like, let's just say it. The difference has been Cody Simon in this run. Something clicked, and it's a man on a mission, and he has completely changed the look of this Ohio State defense.
I got a couple things on that, and then we're going to go to a break after this. But I do think the linebackers before the year they're playing way better. We were predicting that they weren't going to be like this at all. Like, Cody Simon at times has been the best linebacker over the past couple of years, but even at times it's like, if he's your best, you're limited in what you can do on defense because he was limited as a player. All of a sudden he's playing all-American type football. The biggest thing to me, though, is moving Sonny Styles from safety to linebacker and then figuring out what linebacker spot he was going to play at.
I believe
and
we
letting him practice that
Jay.
consistently. What's that?
I think we predicted that preseason.
We did.
I remember.
We did.
I want to go back and listen to that show.
It's one of the best things that Jim Knowles has done this year by figuring out positions for each players. Because I think Sonny Styles he has been so versatile. Now, if you watch this game for the first time watching Ohio State, you're like, number 6, he's not the best in coverage. Well, look who he's going up against. Look at the route. Look at the creativity. There are some things that Texas is doing that took advantage of some of the things Sonny Styles was going to be baited into. But outside of that, the linebacker play has been elite game after game after game. Even Cody Simon going down, him coming back in, it seemed like he was still right on schedule. This defense,
I think
man,
the robot arm helped. I think the robot arm is what the difference
just
was.
call it J.J. Watt. Let's just call it what it was. Let's call it J.J. Watt. That's all I think about when I see him with that thing on his arm.
Even though he plays a completely different position?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I know. I am that guy. One guy wears it. If you play a different position, I still give it to that player. Guys, coming up after the break, we've done a lot on the defense, but we haven't done enough about Will Howard and the Buckeyes offense and what they did right and what they did wrong during tonight's game. We'll dive into all about the Buckeyes offense during this win next. This Buckeyes Squad show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Simply visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. As the Locked On Buckeye Squad show rolls on after Ohio State's 28-14 win over Texas.
Can we work on your directing skills on the live show here, Jay?
It's bad. I'm normally better than this, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, this is bad.
Spencer, me and Jay's struggling to get through this because, like, I was
ready to load up with a little chapstick and some sip of water. All of a sudden, I'm on camera. Oh no, I'm not doing it now.
Here's the best thing we found out today: me and Spencer both have chapstick right off screen.
Dude, always. I cannot get through a 30-minute show without reloading on that at least one time.
Yep, I have chapstick, and then I have a little menthol inhaler to clear things up. Just real quick, I know we're getting ready to kill Will Howard. I just want to put out there that one of the quarterbacks in this game threw for 280 yards, 24 for 33, a touchdown, an interception with a 90 rating, and we're about to say how bad he was.
I'm
one of those that's going to say how bad he was today. But I'm saying this is where our standard is for Will Howard.
You take away one throw.
Terrible.
You take one throw away of 75 yards. He's down to 220 something, 219, 218, something like that.
Those yards count, Jay. I'm sorry.
I mean, they do count. But outside of that, I mean, they do count.
It was bad.
You saw the Skycast, so I'm gonna turn it over to you once again. I'm gonna get to Spencer first in the very next segment. I watched the regular broadcast, Herb Street, Fowler calling the game, and it definitely seemed like from the regular TV copy, he couldn't see what was happening.
No, he had no idea.
Comfortable, but also, Jeff, the offensive line was not helping him. So it wasn't just him being able to read things. The O-line wasn't helping, and they were getting more pressure than the O-line had given up in 5 or 6 games. Even with the reconstructed offensive line, Texas found a way to get pressure consistently, and it messed. I mean, you saw Luke Montgomery getting beat. You saw Josh Fryer getting beat. You saw Donovan Jackson allowing guys to get pressure. You allow guys in the offensive line to just allow things to allow holes and allow Texas' defensive linemen to get into Will Howard's line of sight when he's already struggling to see the defense. We touched on Texas' defense earlier and how good their secondary was in coverage. That messed Will Howard up. And while I texted my dad after the game, my brother, I said, 33 made money tonight. Speaking of Jack Sawyer, Will Howard came to Ohio State to raise his draft stock and to win a national championship. Yeah. He's one game away from accomplishing that last goal. While he did raise his draft stock against the best defenses, Jeff, in Texas, which is more of what you're wanting to see. Hey, what did he do against this defense? Yeah. The numbers tell you one thing. But it definitely makes me a little nervous when he goes up against great defenses and how he plays.
Well, that being said, he's definitely a college quarterback. He's going to get drafted now, and he's going to get a shot because he played for Ohio State. And of 2 or 3 games that he had that were great, Will Howard's played absolutely as good as I possibly thought he could ever play. So there's no complaints there. But also, he's played as good as I thought he could ever play.
Aiden O'Connell.
Yes, he's bumped his head on the ceiling. That's fine. And that's great. We already talked about the defense, so that's probably enough. But you are correct. On the sky cam, I kept walking in and telling my wife and I have to watch the game in different rooms. It's a thing. And it's really me, believe it or not. I'm the irrational one. And so I walked in and I'm like, Howard just can't see it. He could not see it. And it was tough. And, we talked about it earlier, but to his credit, outside of the one really, really, really terrible throw, he ate the ball. He lived to play another down. He went full Craig Krenzel, as an Ohio State, everybody knows that. When full Craig Krenzel was like, what I can't do is throw it, I can't throw it, to the sideline, a bad throw. And then they get 7 out of it. He made one mistake. If you take that interception away, like I would say the same thing, Jay, is about the 75-yard Henderson play.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the same thing about the interception. It was really a dumb mistake. Like you could see his helmet. He didn't know where he was throwing it. He hasn't thrown that ball really all year. I mean, I watch him game after game after game. He hasn't made that mistake all year. And so, like, I would say also, if you take that away, or if you give him the Henderson 15-yarder back, like, I think his game could also have looked better.
Yeah.
But he definitely didn't slice and dice Texas. I don't know if anybody could. I came away from that game being like, anybody that beat Texas, I don't know how Georgia beat them twice. I really don't.
Kirby.
With defense and Kirby's 10 extra timeouts, whatever. But I'm like, I came away from that like, man, I don't think Notre Dame's defense is better than Texas. They're really good, but I don't think they're better. But I really think that they were that good that Howard's like, holy crap, this is hard. And it really showed up. And again, we talked about it earlier. Ewers at some point was like, I thought if you flip quarterbacks in the middle of that game, Ohio State wins, but then turns out you didn't need to. But it was definitely not Will Howard's best game. Some super sweet stuff on the sideline, though. A lot of fist punching, high fives. And Howard's having a good time. I've said on the show for this is the 3rd week. We love him. We understand who he is. He's one of these guys. We know he's not going to the pros and light it up, but you know what? He's winning games. He's toughing it out. He loves us. We love him. It's ride or die with Will Howard, which is, I think if somebody told you 14 months ago that Ohio State is like, it's Will Howard or bust, you would be like, well, you guys are screwed.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're not yet.
Yeah.
We've got 3 playoff wins. I don't know what to make of it. He's got, if he played for Penn State, the country would love him. They'd be like, oh, he's got moxie. This kid's just got what it takes and all this. They started to use his legs tonight. And I really, really, really like that. The first play where he got tripped up, I was like, ooh, then of course the big play on the touchdown drive. I was like, we haven't used Will Howard's legs all year. We're in week 18 or whatever, but
they should have on, was it 3rd and short, 3rd and 1?
Oh, they probably should have in November, but you know what?
6'4", 240. Give me a QB sneak.
Oh, okay.
2 or 3 yards.
At that point in the game, I was driving in my car and listening to the game on ESPN radio, and I'm hearing the guy lay everything out. The nose of the football is just shy of the 22-yard line. Here's Howard under center, and he tosses it. And out loud, I went, "He what?"
Yeah.
and then he was stopped short, and I was like, "What do you mean
So here's my
He's huge. He is huge. Push him forward. What are you saving him for? Next season?
And they did the Will Howard push last game, and it worked. So here's the thing, Spencer, I'm with you. If you're taller than the distance you need to get a first down, you just have the quarterback do it. I mean,
do a Drew Brees hike.
Yeah.
Look, yes, the ball got there.
Yes,
just fall forward. It's
5'6".
It's so easy. You don't need to overthink that. By the way, when I said Aiden O'Connell earlier, I meant that as Will Howard's NFL comp.
Yeah,
because I think he's capable of making some really high level throws, and he has a beautiful deep ball, and he's got
coached.
prototypical size.
Really coached.
Yeah. I think he could have a long career as a backup in the NFL, but guess what? Ohio State fans shouldn't care.
No, we sure don't. Sure don't.
Like it's not going to matter if and probably when, in my view, they beat Notre Dame to win the national championship. It'll just be that's the guy who got Ryan Day over the hump for the first time in his career. Like that's all
It
he'll
is.
be remembered for. But I got to toot my own horn a little bit here because Jay
do.
knows I earned this. At one point during the week, I believe it was on our Big Ten squad, or I forget when. There was all the shows blend together. But I told you, Jay, at some point, Will Howard's legs, not, Georgia Tech style with Haynes King or Notre Dame with Riley Leonard, but at some point, they're going to call a quarterback run in a big spot.
Yeah.
And so on that 4th and 2, it was listed as a 4th and 3. It's actually 2 and like half of football,
right,
based on where that line of scrimmage marker was on television. But everyone in that situation finds 50 different ways to run mesh rail. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I thought. I'd actually typed a text to my friends and I said, $50, this is mesh rail. And then they came out trips and I didn't see a tight end that you could drag. And I was like, oh, no, it's not. Oh, it's going to be the. And then I got all excited because I was like, oh, this is the one. And then he's running and then he gets Daniel Jones at the 10-yard line or whatever it was. And I'm going, oh boy, does that come back to bite? It had me flashing back to the Peach Bowl yesterday, or the Orange Bowl yesterday, where Penn State, 1st and 2nd and a goal to go situation. Yeah. There's Nick Singleton wide and he's underthrown. And they settle for 3 instead of taking 7. That's 4 points. They lose the game by 3 at the end. And I thought, oh boy, is that going to be this moment for Ohio State where they settle for 3 and then it just didn't matter.
And Spencer, you're correct, because that is exactly the play. That is exactly the drive I'm talking about, that the Ryan Day teams, this isn't fair, but his teams haven't got that touchdown and they've taken the 3 or some stupid mistake. So when Judkins went in, I'm like, wow, they actually did what I like. Here's what Ohio State did tonight that they haven't done in the previous runs. And I know it sounds crazy because when Jay said it out loud that Ohio State hasn't been to the national championship game since 2020, I was a little embarrassed because
my heart breaks for you.
I know it's a tough one. But when he said it,
Richard, there's now 2025,
but the difference
there's
is
2020 season,
is they haven't
2014, 02. You know what that's like? I mean, that's a lot in the 20-year span.
It's like an Astros fan coming on here and being like, man, we haven't been to the World Series in 2 years. Gosh, dang.
Oregon's been to several.
Two,
but yeah.
That's more, yeah. That's, yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, it's better than a lot. I'm just saying, like, we haven't been since 2020.
More than Penn State shot across the bow.
Yeah.
But that you're exactly right, though. That is, Jay can tell you, I can tell you, and I'm an old Ohio State fan, so I can tell you how many times I've seen it. That's the play that they didn't overcome. It was whether it might be a dropped interception, it might be almost picked up a fumble, and that kept happening tonight. And I'm like, well, this is how this is going to go. We're not going to get the break, because the Oregon game, they got all the breaks. Like the ball bounced the right way on everything. Everything just went right. And I'm like, well, this is what it looks like when everything goes right.
Yeah.
And tonight I was like, it's just not going to happen. But it did. And we're the same way. So me and Jay are, we got, PTSD from the CJ Stroud years for 2 years. We were like, any minute they're calling the one run that nobody's suspecting, and CJ Stroud's going to walk into the end zone. And guess what? They never did.
No.
And tonight they called it, the Will Howard play. So the play that you were waiting on, we've been waiting on for 4 years, for like, oh, any minute now, you're going to think it's one way, but it's really another. So finally, but earlier in the game, I really thought that was the one that was going to bust it. And I'm like, okay, we got something here. But it was really a fight. I mean, those are 2 good teams. That's the bottom line to this. They were really, I'm like this is one of the, like, an Oregon too. I said the same thing about Oregon. Like, Oregon was a good team. I don't care what the score was. Oregon was a good football team. Like, both of those teams should be like, awesome. So it was just one of those. Like, somebody, again, I said it earlier, somebody had to lose. It stinks. It's awesome for me.
Spencer, I got a question for you. Got about 60 seconds. I wrote down on my paper just drive killers, and we touched on them like in the first 10 minutes of the show about the penalties. Austin Servell late in the game had the unsportsmanlike penalty where he kind of hit 2 guys after the whistle.
Man.
You got Trevian Henderson punching a guy. You had Josh Schreier on a false start, Josh Schreier on a holding. I'm not going to go through all of them. But how do you think that impacted Will Howard tonight, not being able to bounce back when things got off script?
I think it impacted his inability to get into a rhythm. It's not hard for me to work in a golf analogy, but I'm a much better player if there's a solid pace to the round. Like, I really struggle when I, work to, two putt for par or whatever, and then I go to the next tee and I sit there for 5 minutes and I don't, I can wait for a little while, but there's a line. And I think mentally, I wonder if Will Howard was, kind of pressing like, oh, I got to make up for that mistake. Oh, I got to overcome, a mistake by my team. I got to help him out instead of just, okay, next play, let's go, make the right decision and not try to, do anything crazy here. I think that was kind of exemplified in the interception that he threw. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I came back to in the fourth quarter. Like, man, Ohio State had a lot of chances to open up a 14 to 20 point lead, and they couldn't get out of their own way. You give Texas credit for a lot of things that they did, but Texas didn't tell the offensive lineman or get in his head, go hit that guy. They weren't Scarlet Witch mind controlling him here. They didn't have Charles Xavier in the crowd, I don't think. So, they just got in their own way sometimes. And then when that happened, where you give Texas credit is they had the scheme and the players to be able to hold them.
Yeah. Coming up next after the break, we touched on it earlier about Ohio State's path just to get to the national championship semifinal, but that path has also prepared them to play the national championship. We'll dive into that next. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff games is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games and can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and extra teams involved. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game. Browsing through the deals was a breeze, and I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal stood out as the best value for the event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying, and that the app shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
By the way, Jay, you've done too many shows with me. You got to know, I've never given a 60-second answer when asked something in my life.
Well, so I was going to bring that up, but I was like, no, he's worked with Jeff and he's worked with Spencer. He's like, I got 60 seconds. I'm like, sure. And that's the same way at work. They're like, I got a quick question. And I was like, well, I got a long answer.
We're off the rails. It's after midnight. Ohio State's going to the Natty. They beat Texas 28-14. This is how we roll here on the Lock the Buckeye Squad show. Spencer, we'll start with you on this one, and then we'll get our early picks for the national championship. Ohio State's path to a national championship doesn't just encompass this current season. It encompasses 4 or 5 years. Not just for Ryan Day and his tenure at Ohio State. Jack Sawyer's been around for four or 5 years. Lathan Ransom, 4 or 5 years. You have Will Howard at another stop along the way, but 4 or 5 years. Caleb Downs only a couple years in, but he has still seen a lot of football. How do you think Ohio State's path to the national championship this year has prepared them for the national championship game on January 20th?
I think it's pretty clear they went through the tougher side of the bracket. You didn't have a top seed with a backup quarterback as you had at Georgia, though I didn't think Gunnar Stockton was the problem. I think Notre Dame beats Georgia even if Carson Beck plays. It still has to help at least a little bit. That's Miami's new quarterback, by the way, for those that are curious, because that's how college football kind of goes.
Right.
But you took on a team that hadn't lost a game all year, and it looked very good for the most part doing it in Oregon and dismantled them. You took on a Tennessee team that I thought was really good and dismantled them as well. So you've got kind of this perfect blend of, hey, we know what we're capable of, but if we don't bring our A game, then we can still find a way to get the win, which is what they just did here against Texas. Like, no matter what situation comes about, Ohio State's able to win. I feel like they haven't really demonstrated an ability to dominate in the rushing game to control, but that's about it. They can take away the run, they can take away the pass, they can pressure a quarterback, they can force turnovers, they can throw the ball down the field, they can be good situationally. The special teams, I know one of your keys, Jays, to this game was to not have any special teams disasters. I didn't see one. In fact, there was almost a huge special teams play. They got the ball out of Silas Bolden's hands, and that bounce went right back to him. And oh boy,
yes, it did.
That was really, really fortunate for Texas there. So you've shown yourself what you're capable of, and also how to just find a way to win if it's not always perfect. And I think that my confidence in Ohio State going into this national championship is really high. Like, I can't figure out how Notre Dame wins because I don't know how Notre Dame scores enough points. Ohio State's offense against a great defense, and Notre Dame has a great defense. No doubt about it. One of the 5 best in college football that I have seen this season. Texas's defense just held Ohio State's offense to about as few points as you can ask for with 21, because 7 were scored by the defense.
Yep.
How's Notre Dame getting to 21 points? Serious question. The only teams that have gotten there this season are Oregon twice and Tennessee. What about the Notre Dame offense makes you think they can suddenly put up 21 points? I just don't see it. If you get to that number and you're Ohio State, cover or not, you're going to win the football game because that defense is playing way too well, and Notre Dame has done an incredible coaching job. I actually think, I don't know if this is a popular take per se on this particular show, but Ryan Day is the second best coach in the national championship game right now. No one has done a better coaching job in the postseason than Marcus Freeman, because he is if you look at Notre Dame's talent profile and the way that they have been struggling to throw the football, they shouldn't be here, but they are. And and the injuries that they have battled, he has put on a coaching masterclass here. Yeah. And Ryan Day's done a really good job, but Marcus Freeman is doing more with less. But that less is going to get outdone by the more on Ohio State side in this game.
Yeah, I would think so. One thing I would say about that is I think Ohio State's coaching staff has done a better job from start to finish. But I think Marcus Freeman, I honestly think he's the better head coach. But he doesn't have the advantages that Ryan Day has with Jim Knowles and these guys. Notre Dame's it's 1A and 1B, but I just think that I think if Notre Dame runs into Oregon, I don't know if they win that game. I guess that's what I'm saying. I really, because I'm giving credit to the teams that Ohio State's beat. But I still, tonight was a good night as far as like head coaching. But I also think that Jack Sawyer kind of bailed Ryan Day out a little bit. I think Freeman's an excellent head coach, especially at his age. How about we have 2 young head coaches, going at each other that have coached together. At one point Freeman was. It's so hard to explain what a Buckeye Freeman is. He was a coach when Freeman was on the staff, and they had to decide what are we going to do when it hits the fan. We were like, we want to keep Marcus Freeman. We all knew that Marcus Freeman was a great coach. And then he goes to the one team that we can't stand. What he was supposed to do was go to, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, learn how to coach. Ryan Day was going to go back to the Patriots, which, hot take, I think if he wins the national championship, he might be on Mike Vrabel's staff. I'm not sure how this is going to go. But then we thought, well, Freeman's going to come back. He's going to be the head coach. Well, things have went crazy. Freeman's done way better at Notre Dame than anybody thought, not because of him, but because of everything. So, yeah, it's an insane battle. I don't even know what to think of it. It is hard to explain. Jay's from Indiana. I'm from Ohio. It is really hard to explain to the country what Notre Dame versus Ohio State means as far as the population of we'll say the few 100-mile radius of these fan bases. It's crazy. Like Woody Hayes always said, he was the best recruiter for Notre Dame because if he thought he couldn't get a kid, he didn't want him going to Michigan, so he told him to go to Notre Dame. But that's why Woody Hayes wouldn't play Notre Dame. So now things are a little different. Notre Dame's always been littered with Ohio kids, and like around here, like I don't know, it's just crazy. There's the whole Catholic thing. There's the whole location thing. Like this is.
What are we calling this game?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Catholics versus. I'm drawing a blank.
Hey, we're not saying convicts. We're not doing that again.
No. I wouldn't.
We're not that Miami team.
But to be fair, you guys should be jealous of me because I remember watching Catholics versus convicts, the game, and it was awesome. Lou Holtz.
Some of us can only watch that game on YouTube.
And it was.
I don't think I was born.
It is hard to.
I think I was born. It is hard to explain. It was like, hey, what are we doing for the Miami Notre Dame game? Like, where are we meeting? Like, whose house are we going to watch this thing? Like, there's no social media. There was no nothing. So, like, it is hard to explain. Like, but I was there for it. It was awesome. And I was rooting for Miami, by the way. Surprise.
Jay, how old are you?
36.
Oh, okay. That's about what I thought.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, what's your confidence level in Ohio State being able to beat Notre Dame?
Being able to? Oh,
yeah.
100% able.
Okay.
100%. Ohio State can, we've proved, again,
that question should be flipped.
Spencer was the one after we did the Tennessee game that was the one that was like this team's good. I had to take off my my goggles and my negativity and all these things and be like, wait a minute, if I'm watching this, if I'm an alien and I got dropped on the planet Earth, there's no reason that I 1000% know that if every team in the country plays their best game, that Ohio State can still win. And so there's no reason for me to think that they couldn't. I'm not saying they're going to. I said this about this game. I'm not saying they're going to win. I know they can win.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need if it's even, because I said that about Oregon. I'm like, imagine that. No penalties, no turnovers. Ohio State wins. You know what I mean? Like if it's a straight up game, like Ohio State can beat anybody. And tonight was a little different. You know what I mean? As soon as Henderson hit the dude in the face mask, I'm like, well, that was the 15 yards that you couldn't give up. So yes, if it's a straight up game and everything goes as planned and everybody plays their best, Ohio State will win that game. I'm not saying they're going to, but if everything's,
I'm saying it right here.
Spencer,
right
I love you, man. I love you when you say it. I don't even know what to do because we've won 3 playoff games, and I'm still like, well, I'm not happy.
It's weird, man.
I get
playing 3 playoff games.
It's
We've
terrible.
never done this before. This is the hardest path of any
Only
season.
2 teams have won 3 playoff games in a row. I'm sorry.
It's weird. Like we're sitting here talking about like the playoff and confidence in the national championship. This is literally the first time this has ever happened in the sport. And before anybody can ever get used to it and comfortable with it, they're going to expand the playoff once again.
Oh, yeah.
But this path right now, I do think it's prepared.
I know.
I know.
I don't want to waste my time with national guys. Spencer, I really want to know, like watching this game, how did you feel about the atmosphere watching it in Jerry World? It didn't feel like the Rose Bowl. It didn't even feel like last night. Was it a little stagnant?
I think every neutral site game faces a challenge of you can't get a full-throated crowd experience, which is why the best part of the 12-team playoff is home playoff games. That is the best part of it because those atmospheres were every bit as loud as they were throughout the season, but then you felt the stakes of seasons on the line, playoff. I mean, it's incredible. So I'd actually like to see more of those. I think teams that earn a bye should get a home playoff game.
I agree.
Because that's an actual advantage, clearly more so than having an extra week off, which, appears to have been a hindrance. I mean, now Arizona State almost came back in the game against Texas and very easily could have won. I do not think it was a coincidence that all 4 teams that had those long layoffs started slow in the first quarter. They all came out and they looked like, oh boy, they look a little rusty. They look like they're not really in rhythm there. But I think for the idea of the expanded playoff, by the way, is
I'm not a fan of it. I can get down with the current format, I think 12 is too many for college football. 6 or 8 would be way better. I think going to 14.
Eight was always the number. I'm assuming. I know we don't have time to do this conversation. We've all had it. I'm assuming that the conference championship game tie-ins and not, because of TV and all that is what caused what we had this year. They were so close to having a really good system, and then they kind of blew it. I'm sure it was because the networks got in there and like, wait a minute, we can't do this, we can't do that.
Yeah. Sorry, but, Jeff. What did I answer your question? I forgot what it was.
You absolutely did.
Oh, okay.
You kind of did, because as I watched the game, I'm like, the game felt kind of.
Oh, the atmosphere. It just
felt kind of. It felt kind of.
I wouldn't say stale. I think ESPN's broadcast crew behind the scenes does a good job of getting the crowd picked up in a solid way. I've actually always felt they've done a better job at that than Fox.
Oh, yeah.
At times. I feel like Fox more wants to highlight the talent in the booth more than the crowd. And,
I think Fox broadcasts like it's a basketball game. Does that make sense?
It kind of does. I as a play-by-play guy myself, I think about that stuff a lot. And I think it's a misguided approach because you know what I yearn for? I'm calling a Southern Utah basketball game tomorrow and called one on Thursday as well. You know what I yearn for every single time I walk into that arena? I want this place as packed as possible.
Yeah.
And the students were great on Thursday, and the crowd was great, and it got chippy, and I'm down there on the court, and I'm hearing fans chirp at the official behind me. I love that. But I want that energy and that electricity to be the most important part of me calling a game. I think Fowler and Herbstreit understand that very well. I think ESPN gets that well. But,
good.
When you have a neutral site, that's just kind of how it is. I still think an environment like this is better in the Super Bowl. Like, all I've ever heard, I haven't been to a Super Bowl, all I've ever heard is it's very corporate.
Yeah,
is it feels very corporate thing. And
that's what I wondered how it came off tonight, because I watched the Skycast, and I'm obviously like so dialed into a team I could watch it on mute, and just for some reason the takeaway was like that didn't feel right. But I'm glad
the Rose Bowl felt better, but it's
the
also
Rose
the Rose
Bowl.
Bowl.
The Rose Bowl is awesome.
I can't compare anything to that.
I agree.
That needs to be the national
special
championship game. Like, whoever can make this happen, that needs to be the national championship game.
Jeff, you're saying something logical that would be great for college football fans in the sport writ large. Please don't get your hopes up about that coming to fruition.
Unfortunately, we're up out of time, and I would love to do this a little bit longer, but maybe
I might just call Spencer and just talk to him the rest of the night about college football.
Hey, Zach, we do like an hour-long show once a week, just us three just talking about random college football stuff. Sure, let's make it happen. I don't know, but can I get quick?
We can do that. I got a college football show. I'm the EP. I have on whoever I want. We'll make that happen next week.
Look at this guy.
We'll make that happen
Spencer,
next week.
Look at this guy.
You're picking Notre Dame. No, you're not picking Notre Dame. Picking Ohio State to beat Notre Dame?
Yes, I am picking Ohio State to beat Notre Dame, just so we're very clear on what I'm thinking here. And Jay's not out here. I was this close to calling my lawyer. I don't have one, but I'd get one for a libel lawsuit here against Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes. That close.
Jeff, this is not your final pick, but who are you picking to win the national championship?
I'm taking Ohio State. It would be embarrassing as a fan and as an analyst and as somebody that just has eyeballs to pick against Ohio State at this point.
We got Buckeye, and I'm going Buckeyes as well. We're all three on the same page. We got a few more days, about a week and a half to talk about this game before it's played. I can't wait. That's Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football and Locked On Ducks. He's probably a little sad about that Rose Bowl game, but oh well. Buckeyes, good guys won. That's Jeff Hunt of Ohio State football analyst. I am Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes.
Unnecessary.
I got to get that out before I get on Spencer's show next week. And he tried to throw darts at me, but it's all fun. Y'all,
hey, Oregon won on the hardwood in Columbus, where it really counts.
Buckeye fans don't care about
Jackson
basketball.
Shellstat for 3.
I was so mad about that game.
The Buckeye Squad show is up out of here. We've been off the rails for about an hour already. Ohio State beat Texas 28-14. They're playing Notre Dame in the national championship. Hopefully, all three of us will be back at the end of that game to chop it up once
Buckeyes
again.
by 20.
And we all hope to after an Ohio State win. Go Bucks.